When it comes to understanding how men think, psychology suggests that their inner world is often far more complex than it appears on the surface. Many men are raised in environments where emotional restraint is praised and vulnerability is subtly discouraged, which shapes how they process feelings and experiences. From an early age, boys are often taught to be strong, composed, and solution-oriented. As a result, many men grow up believing that expressing confusion, sadness, or fear might be seen as weakness. This doesn't mean they lack deep emotions. In fact, psychological research shows that men experience emotional intensity just as strongly as women do. The difference lies in expression. Instead of verbalizing emotions, men are more likely to internalize them or channel them into action. They might focus on fixing a problem rather than talking about how it feels, not because they don't care, but because their minds are wired and trained to equate action with love, protection, and responsibility. Another important psychological insight is that many men think in a highly compartmentalized way. This means they tend to separate different areas of life into mental boxes. Work stays in one box, relationships in another, friendships in another, and personal struggles in yet another. This compartmentalization helps them focus deeply on one task at a time and can make them appear calm under pressure. However, it can also create misunderstandings in relationships. When a man says he doesn't want to talk about work problems at home, it may not mean he doesn't trust his partner. It may simply reflect his natural tendency to keep certain boxes closed so he can function efficiently. Psychology suggests that this style of thinking helps many men manage stress by preventing emotional spillover, but it can also make it harder for others to access their inner world. Psychology also indicates that men are often highly driven by purpose and competence. Feeling useful, capable, and respected plays a significant role in their sense of identity. Many men tie their self-worth to their ability to provide, protect, or solve problems. When they feel ineffective or criticized, it can deeply impact their confidence, even if they don't openly admit it. Encouragement, appreciation, and acknowledgement of their efforts often have a powerful psychological effect on them. This is not about ego in a shallow sense. Rather, it reflects a fundamental need to feel valued and significant. When a man feels that his contributions matter, he is more likely to invest emotionally and remain committed in relationships and responsibilities. Another fascinating aspect is how men process stress. Psychological research shows that while women are more likely to cope with stress by seeking social support and discussing their feelings, many men cope by withdrawing temporarily. This withdrawal is often misunderstood as indifference or avoidance. In reality, it can be a coping mechanism. When overwhelmed, many men prefer to think through solutions alone before re-engaging socially. Silence, for them, can be a way of regaining control internally. This does not mean they do not need support. Rather, they may need space first and conversation later. Understanding this pattern can prevent unnecessary conflicts and build empathy in close relationships. Men also tend to communicate more directly and literally compared to the emotionally layered communication styles often seen in women. Psychology suggests that many men focus on the explicit content of words rather than implied meanings. If a partner says, "It's fine," a man may take it at face value rather than searching for hidden emotions behind the statement. This difference in interpretation can lead to confusion. It is not that men are insensitive. Rather, their cognitive processing often prioritizes clarity and straightforwardness. Clear communication tends to resonate more strongly with them than indirect hints or subtle cues. When expectations are expressed directly, many men respond more positively and effectively. Competition is another psychological factor that significantly influences how many men think. From childhood sports to career ambitions, competition is often socialized into boys as a way to measure growth and success. As adults, this can translate into a strong drive to achieve and to compare progress with peers. Healthy competition can motivate men to work harder and improve themselves. However, it can also create internal pressure to constantly prove their worth. This is why public failure or humiliation can feel particularly intense. Recognition and respect often carry deep psychological importance because they affirm competence and social standing. Romantically, psychology shows that men may fall in love differently, but not less deeply. While some stereotypes suggest men are less emotionally invested, studies indicate that men often attach strongly once they commit. However, they may show love through actions more than words. Doing favors, fixing things, planning practical aspects of the future, or silently supporting a partner's goals can be expressions of affection. Emotional intimacy for many men develops gradually, especially if they have not been encouraged to express vulnerability in the past. When they feel emotionally safe and accepted without judgment, they are far more likely to open up and reveal the depth of their feelings. Another psychological insight is that many men struggle silently with insecurity. Because society expects them to be confident and strong, they may feel pressure to hide doubts about their appearance, success, intelligence, or desirability. Compliments and reassurance can have a profound effect, even if they brush them off casually. Internally, such affirmations often stay with them longer than they admit. The expectation to have it all together can make it difficult for men to seek help when they are struggling with mental health challenges. This is why supportive environments that normalize emotional expression are crucial for their well-being. Decision-making patterns also reveal interesting differences. Many men are inclined toward risk-taking behavior, partly due to biological influences like testosterone and partly due to social conditioning that rewards boldness. This can make them decisive and action-oriented, especially in high-pressure situations. However, it can also lead to impulsive choices if emotional awareness is low. When balanced with reflection and emotional intelligence, this decisiveness becomes a strength that benefits leadership and problem-solving roles. Finally, psychology emphasizes that while there are general patterns in how men think, individual differences always matter more than stereotypes. Personality, upbringing, culture, trauma, and life experiences shape each man uniquely. Some men are highly expressive and emotionally intuitive, while others are reserved and analytical. The most important takeaway is that understanding how men think requires empathy rather than assumption. When we look beyond surface behaviors and consider the psychological influences behind them, we begin to see that many men are navigating expectations, pressures, and emotions in ways that are often invisible. Recognizing this complexity allows for deeper connection, healthier communication, and stronger relationships built on mutual understanding rather than misunderstanding. One powerful psychological insight about how men think is related to their relationship with respect. For many men, respect is not just a preference but a deep emotional need. While love is important, feeling respected often carries equal or even greater psychological weight. When a man feels dismissed, belittled, or constantly criticized, it can affect him more deeply than he shows. Respect, in his mind, is closely tied to identity and value. If he feels admired for his strengths, decisions, and efforts, he becomes more open, generous, and emotionally available. But when respect feels threatened, he may react defensively or withdraw entirely. This reaction is rarely about arrogance. It is often about protecting a fragile sense of self-worth that he may not openly acknowledge. Psychology also shows that many men are future-oriented thinkers. They often measure progress in tangible ways such as career advancement, financial stability, skill development, or long-term planning. This forward-focused mindset can sometimes make them appear emotionally distant in the present moment. However, internally, they may be thinking about how to build security and stability for the future. Their love can manifest through planning, strategizing, and working hard to create something lasting. When they are stressed about money or career, it is often because these areas are deeply connected to how they define success and responsibility. Supporting their ambitions without making them feel pressured can create a powerful sense of partnership. Another important psychological factor is how men handle vulnerability. Many men grow up without strong role models who demonstrate healthy emotional expression. As a result, vulnerability can feel unfamiliar or even unsafe. When a man shares something deeply personal, it is often a significant sign of trust. He may test the waters slowly, revealing small pieces of himself before fully opening up. If those moments are met with understanding rather than judgment, he is more likely to continue. However, if vulnerability is mocked, minimized, or later used against him in arguments, he may retreat emotionally and build stronger walls. Psychological safety is essential for men to feel comfortable expressing their fears, regrets, or insecurities. Men also tend to value loyalty in a very intense way. Loyalty, to many men, represents stability and trust. Whether in friendships or romantic relationships, betrayal can feel profoundly destabilizing. Because men may not always verbalize their emotional investments, others sometimes underestimate how deeply they attach. But once a man considers someone part of his inner circle, that bond can become extremely important. Losing it can cause significant emotional pain, even if he tries to hide it behind silence or anger. Loyalty, for many men, equals emotional security. There is also a psychological tendency among men to bond through shared activities rather than prolonged emotional conversations. Many men feel closer to others while doing something together, such as playing sports, working on a project, driving, or gaming. Action-based bonding often feels more natural than sitting face-to-face discussing feelings. This doesn't mean they avoid connection. It simply means their style of connection is often activity-centered. Understanding this can improve relationships by recognizing that meaningful conversations sometimes happen more easily side by side rather than across from each other. When it comes to conflict, psychology suggests that men may interpret arguments as problems to solve rather than experiences to emotionally process. If a partner brings up a concern, he may immediately search for a solution instead of first validating feelings. This solution-focused response can sometimes feel dismissive to others, even though his intention is to fix what is wrong. Learning to pause and acknowledge emotions before jumping into problem-solving can strengthen communication, but it is helpful to understand that his instinct often comes from a desire to improve the situation quickly. Another layer of male psychology involves pride and independence. Many men are socialized to believe they should handle challenges alone. Asking for help can feel like admitting weakness. This is why some men delay seeking advice or support, even when overwhelmed. Encouraging collaboration without making him feel incapable can make a huge difference. When help is offered in a way that preserves his dignity, he is more likely to accept it. Independence is not about rejecting others. It is often about maintaining a sense of competence and control. Men also tend to experience love in a protective way. Protection does not always mean physical defense. It can mean wanting to shield loved ones from stress, financial hardship, or emotional pain. This protective instinct can drive them to work harder, take risks, or suppress their own struggles so others feel safe. However, constantly playing the protector can become exhausting if they feel unappreciated. Acknowledging their efforts and reassuring them that they do not have to carry everything alone can relieve silent pressure they may be feeling. Psychology further shows that men often replay failures in their minds more than they admit. Because success is closely tied to identity, setbacks can feel deeply personal. A career rejection, financial loss, or mistake in a relationship may linger internally long after the event has passed. While they may not openly discuss these feelings, they often analyze what went wrong and how to improve. Encouragement during these moments can have a long-lasting impact, even if they respond with a simple nod or brief thank you. Ultimately, understanding how men think requires looking beyond stereotypes of emotional detachment or simplicity. Many men operate with deep emotions, strong loyalties, hidden insecurities, and a powerful desire to feel respected and valued. Their thinking patterns may prioritize action over discussion, solutions over emotional exploration, and independence over visible vulnerability. But beneath these tendencies is a complex inner world shaped by biology, culture, and personal experience. When empathy replaces assumption, relationships with men become stronger, more balanced, and far more meaningful. In conclusion, psychology shows that the way men think is shaped by a powerful mix of biology, upbringing, culture, and personal experience. While many men may appear simple, emotionally reserved, or overly logical on the surface, their internal world is often layered with deep emotions, unspoken pressures, silent insecurities, and a strong desire to feel respected and valued. They may not always express feelings through long conversations, but they frequently show love through action, responsibility, protection, and commitment. Their tendency to compartmentalize, to solve rather than discuss, And to withdraw when stressed is often misunderstood as distance or indifference, when in reality it can be a coping strategy learned over years of social conditioning. Understanding how men think requires patience and empathy. Many men are navigating expectations that tell them to be strong, independent, successful, and emotionally controlled all at once. These expectations can create internal pressure that they rarely talk about openly. When they feel appreciated for their efforts, respected for their decisions, and emotionally safe enough to be vulnerable without judgment, they are far more likely to open up and build deep, meaningful connections. At the core, men want to feel competent, trusted, and significant in the lives of the people they care about.